Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're seeing this channel for the first time, this is NASA's thread. So today we'll be making this pretty dress. It is an A-line dress with a belt behind, a coat cowl sleeve. If it's something you want to learn how to make, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and let's get right into this video. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into four. That's because I'll be cutting the front and back together. Now I'm working with a fabric of 2 yards, all right, or 2 meters. Now I would advise you have at least 2.5 yards of this so that you're not cut short, okay? Because at some point while making this, I was trying to manage my fabric so that I won't be short of fabric, all right? So I advise you have at least 2.5, and depending on the length you want to work with, you can use more or less. So I've marked out a line to serve as my starting line and my shoulder line, all right? And on that line I'll go in and mark my shoulder, half of my shoulder measurement from the closed end, which is 7.5 inches. So go ahead and mark half of your shoulder measurement and go down by 1 inch for your shoulder slope. All right, from the point of the shoulder slope, I'll mark my armhole line. Now this is simply gotten by dividing your round bust by 6 and then adding 1.5 inches to that. So whatever you have, mark it down at that point. For me, I got 7 inches. I marked it down and I'm going ahead to rule a line like so vertically, and I will also rule a line horizontally to indicate that point. So the next thing we'll do is to mark out our neckline. Now note that this cloth doesn't have a zip at the back, but you can also decide to do yours with a zip, all right? So I'll be marking a neck width of 3:3 for the front. I'll still go ahead to work on that later on. But for now, we're using 3:3 for the front and then 1.5 inch to 3. So that means for the back, sorry. So that means the back neck depth is 1.5 inches while the width is 3 inches. And then the front is 3 inches at the depth and 3 inches for the width. So I went ahead to use my rule, my curve rule, to make my connection at that point. There we have it. So I just went in with my chalk to extend my lines so that they are more visible to the eyes. Okay, so that is the back neckline and this is our front neckline. So we want to go ahead and take our other measurements. Before doing that, we'll just slope in our shoulder slant into the neck width we've taken, like so. Now you'll notice me working with different colors of chalk. That's because at a point this wasn't really going well. So I'm basically just marking my basic bodice pattern. So on the armhole line, I marked half of the measurement I have there, which is 3.5. And then at that point, I went in by half of an inch and then marked quarter of my round bust on the horizontal line. All right. So quarter means dividing your round bust, that's the circumference of your bust, by 4. And then I'm using my curve rule to connect the points I made, like so. Head and take our other vertical measurements. All right, so from the shoulder line we'll go ahead and mark our bust point. So my bust point is 10 inches. I mark that down. I'm going ahead to mark my half length, that's my waist point, which is 16, my hip point, which is 24, and I went ahead to check that was accurate, and then the full length of this dress. So no matter the length you're taking for yours, Remember to always add at least 1 inch of hemming allowance at the down. So if you want your dress to be 25 inches, for example, ensure you mark out 26 inches. This is because by the time you fold this up, you don't want to leave your dress like that, all rough and looking unprofessional. So you want to ensure you have your hemming allowance so you can fold that in properly. All right. So I just went in with my rule to make my lines across the points I have. So that is our full line, the hip line, the waistline, the armhole line. Okay. So go ahead and rule a line at the bust line right now. Okay, this is just for formality. Okay, like I said, you can work with the armhole line. So I'm adding 2 inches to the measurement I took around the armhole line. Now 1 inch is for my seam allowance and 1 inch is for ease. Now remember, it's an A-line dress, so it is not body fitted. You can as well add extra inches for yours. Okay, so you can use 1.5 inches for your stitching allowance. You can use 2 inches, but ensure you use a moderate amount. So I'm just going in to mark my body measurement. On the waist, I took quarter of my waist measurement, the round waist, and then I added my 2 inches to that. Remember, we're not using a dart for this. On the hip line, I did the same thing, the hip point, took quarter of my hip and then added 2 inches. Now I'm going to replicate the same measurement I have on the hip on the full length of this. It is an A line, meaning it is not fitted at the end area, the knee area. Okay, so that's just what it means. And I'll go in with my free hand to connect the points I have made. So I hope you can see the lines I made. My chalks were actually not agreeing with this. Okay, so let me just touch this up a little more so you have an accurate view. But I hope from my understanding you understand everything I'm saying. The only difference from the usual body measurement for the A line is that you use the same measurement you have on the hip on the full length. Okay, whatever the length of your dress is, be 40, 50, whatever length you're using to work with. All right, so ensure you extend that line, same measurement on the hip down there. Okay, so you can see our lines. Okay, I believe that a little bit more visible right now. So I went ahead to just touch up that point that was sharp, and I'm going ahead to just cut out our dress now. So I'm cutting out the back neckline first so that I can take it out and work on the front. Okay, so I've cut it out. I'll take off the pin I have on this, then take out the back piece, the one that will serve my back piece, fold this back again. You want to fold this back accurately the way it should be, and then work on the front neck. Remember, I said there will be no zip for this, so you need the neck to be a little bit wider for ease so that your head can pass through this safely. So before doing that, I'll go ahead to cut out the one we marked already. That's the 3 inches we marked already. And then from that point where I've cut out, I will mark down the length of the opening I want for this. Now, this totally depends on your choice. You can have this deeper, all right, but ensure it is not small that your head will not pass through. So it can be more or it can be less. Okay, so what I did was to go down by 3 inches again, and I'll just make a slanted line like so. Okay, into the other end. So from the other point, that's the top part, you can just go in by half of an inch and then slant it from whatever length you took for the opening, just slant it into it. So I went in by half of an inch from that end. I marked it down. Okay, and I'll go ahead to cut this out. So like I said, go in by half of an inch and then make a slanted line to the point you made earlier, and then just open it up with your scissors. As simple as that. Okay, so like I said, you can go deeper. So when we open this up, this is what we have, like so. So I went ahead to cut facing for the back and the front, and I extended my facing to the armhole area. That's because the top part of the armhole area is open. Okay, remember we are working with a coat sleeve. So I'll go ahead and stitch around the neckline and then the armhole area. That is the back piece, and I'll do the same thing for my front piece, which I've already gone ahead to cut out my facing for it. Like I said, you place to stitch this down, you place your lining, your facing and the material right side facing right side. Okay, and then go ahead and stitch around the armhole, the neckline area. Okay, leaving the shoulder open. That's just simply what you do. So I've done that, you can see, and I went ahead to iron this so that it is smooth and is looking nice, right? So this is the front piece. After I did that, you can still see the V shape we have in front. Okay, so we want to join the shoulders of our dress together. I'm going ahead to place this right side of the fabric to right side of fabric, and then I'll pass my hand through this. This is because I don't want any stitching to be outside. I want it to have a neat finishing around the shoulder area. So I'll go ahead to ensure they are placed accurately and then pin them all through. Okay, so just place them well, position them properly, pin them together. So after doing that, I'll go ahead and stitch it down. So I've stitched it down. I also went ahead to iron it together. So if you're stitching, stitch it down with half of an inch. All right. So I've stitched it down. You can see how this looks like. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to go in with our hemming gum. We're going to hem the armhole area, the neckline area with the hemming gum. Is simply placing this inside where you want it to be, using an iron to iron it properly to give it a smooth look. Okay, so that's what it means. So cover up the edges of this. So I've done that. This is what the dress looks like. Okay, so go ahead to join the body together. Now before doing this, remember I said the dress has a belt. Okay, I have gone ahead to cut out my belt, the piece for my belt already. All right, so I'll just show this to you. This is my belt piece. So after flipping this over to the right side, this is what it looks like. Okay, so after flipping this, I have this at 1 inch of width, and the length I have is 25 inches. So you can make yours longer or you can make it shorter. All right, so that's what I'll be working with. Okay, so to make the belt is just to cut a long strip of fabric, fold it, ensure you close one end. That's the end that will be exposed outside. That is just it, and then flip to the right side of the fabric. Okay, so what I'll do before I stitch down the side is to place my belt around the waist, because that's where it's going to sit. Now remember, the allowance I added for this was 1 inch, so I went ahead to mark 1 inch, that point, and I will place my belt on that. Now I'm putting the extension of the belt inside the fabric. You don't want to make the mistake of placing it outside, so that by the time you stitch it, your belt is not at the bad face to say of your fabric. Okay, it needs to be on the good face of your fabric. So I'm doing the same thing on the other side. On the waist, on the waist area of my dress. I'm placing my belt like so, and then placing the unstitched part, the part that's not closed. That's where I'm actually placing inside. I'm going to pin it down and cover it up. So I'll go ahead and stitch down the sides with 1 inch, which I added for my seam allowance. So let's get to drafting our sleeve. So this is the piece I'll be using for my sleeve, and I've marked the other end, which will serve as the folded end of this. Okay, that's the center front. So the first thing I'm going ahead to do is to mark the length of my sleeve, and I marked 13 inches, which includes my seam allowance. I always say seam allowance, that's a hemming allowance, because it is important for you to add this, right? So from that end, I'm going to mark half of my round armhole. Now, half of my round armhole measurement is 8 inches. That's 16 inches. I went ahead to mark 8 inches. Then I'll use my rule to box it up like so. Alright, so I've boxed it up. This is what we have. On that area also, I'm going to mark 4 inches. Okay, and then mark 4 inches on this other line. Then I'll go in with my curve rule to connect both points together. Now, advice for yours to not be so deep like mine. Okay, so it should not be so deep. So this is what we have. What I'll do is to, on the down part of my sleeve, I just went ahead to mark the half measurement of where this ends. Okay, so that's my bicep, not my bicep actually, my elbow area, because that's where the sleeve is going to end. Okay, so I just went in and marked half of it, which is 6 inches. So take the measurement around. You should have the measurement around your hand. Okay, like the sleeve, your sleeve, different sleeve measurements at different points. That's just it. Okay, so this is what we have at the end of the day. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to work on this. So I'm going ahead to mark 4 inches on this other end, so I can rule a straight line across like so. Now this is simply because I don't want my lines to be, one to be higher and the other one to be on the low side. Okay, now from that end, remember what I have is 4 inches. I'll go ahead and divide this by 3. Now you can divide this by 4 since it's 4 inches. Go in by 1, 2, 3, 4. That's dividing this 1, 1, 1, 1. All right, you can, because doing that gives you more space. Will I say space? It gives you more room for ruffles for the fall of the sleeve. Okay, but I went in and divided mine by 3. So this is what we have. I'll go ahead and label them 1, 2, 3, and then I will cut them. Bring in another piece. So this one is where I'm going to place this. So you can do this directly on your fabric piece, but because my fabric is small, I'm trying to manage this. So this is what I am talking about. Okay, so I'm trying to manage my fabric so that it doesn't disturb me. So from this other edge, I went ahead to mark that point as my center front. Okay, from that end, I'll be marking 3 inches inward like so. You can see me marking 3 inches inward. This is to give more room for the cowl effects, right? So this is why we're adding more allowance to the side of our sleeve. And I'll go ahead to connect the points I've made with a straight rule, a straight line. So there we have it. So the next thing I want to do is to start placing the piece I have, like my initial sleeve pattern. So I'm placing the down part of this and I've pinned it down. From that end, I'll be marking 2 inches upward, and then I'll be placing this accordingly. So you're placing from highest to lowest, or will I say from bottom to top. So you're placing this with a distance of 2 inches. You can also place yours with a distance of 2.5 inches so that it gives it more room for fall. Okay, it gives it more room for the cowl effect. So I just did mine with 2 inches, and I went ahead to pin them down like so. You can see, so we have 1, 2, 3, like so, the way it was before we cut them out. And I'll go in with my marker and then connect everything together. So I'll just go in and cut this out. So at this area, I actually made a little mistake. So you don't want to have this curve, this so much pronounced curve at this end. Okay, you don't want to have so much pronounced curve at that end. Ensure your curve is not so pronounced. And I went ahead to make notches at the end where the distance between my slashes. Okay, I just went ahead to make notches there. That's going to help me when I'm cutting out my main fabric. So I've cut out my fabric, and I also made those notches I had on my paper, on my pattern paper. I made those notches on it. Okay, so what I'll do is to fold this notch to notch, and then I'll pin it down. So you're folding notch 1 to notch 2, notch 3 to notch 4, and then notch 5 to notch 6. Okay, so that makes it 3. Okay, we have 2 in 1, 2 in 1, 2 in 1, making it 3. And I went ahead to pin it down. You repeat the same process. So you're placing this from up to down. You do the same thing at the other end. All right, so that's just simply what we're going to do, and then go ahead and stitch it down. So I've stitched it down, you can see, stitched it down, and I went ahead to hem it down, to hem the rough part, that's the top part of this, with a piece of cloth. So you can use a bias tape if you don't have much fabric, but I think you should have enough fabric to pipe that area down. Okay, so go ahead and hem the down of our sleeves by folding 1/2 inch and then folding in another 1/2 inch, and then go ahead to stitch the side down. So to stitch the side down, because you need it to be a little bit fitted around the arm, go ahead and take half of the measurement of where your sleeve is stopping also. All right, go ahead and take that. So I've done that, I've stitched it down. This is my sleeve after I stitched it down. You can see the opening part, that the part that has the ruffles, that the folded edge, I did not stitch down. It doesn't need to be stitched. So I've gone ahead to stitch the sides of my dress. You can see the belts outside where they should be, and I also went ahead to hem the edge of the dress. All right, so we're going to attach our sleeve to this. To do this, what we'll do is to place the seam allowance, that where we stitched on the dress, the main dress itself, to the area where we stitched on the sleeve. So you want them to align. It's more like the center of the sleeve to the side of the dress, and then you pin upwards to the other end. So repeat the same thing for both sides of our sleeves. So you just pin this down properly, ensure they're properly pinned at the ends. And after doing that, you want to go ahead and stitch it down so that you can secure this properly, so that they don't move. All right, so I've done that. This is the final look of our dress. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and ensure you subscribe to the channel. Okay, and if you've not subscribed, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Don't forget, this is NASA Stress.